How do you spot a blind man at a nude beach? It's not hard. What's your funniest NSFW joke? Oh, thanks for coming to another storytime with me. I'm so happy you can make it. If we haven't met before, I'm Andrew, your narrator. Also, while you're here, can you like the video? It really helps out with the algorithm, thanks. If you don't like the video, I'll tell all your friends and family that you're still a virgin. Anyways, let's get into the story. What do you get when you mix human DNA and goat DNA? Kicked out of the petting zoo. Two guys walking past a dog that's licking his balls. One guy says wistfully, "I wish I could do that." The other guy says, "Go ahead." He looks friendly. One day a man goes to his wife and says, "Honey, I've never said anything before, but I need to know. I've noticed that of our 7 children, that Jack looks different from the others. Does Jack have a different father than his siblings?" The wife says, "Yes, I admit it, he does." The husband says, "Who is his father?" The wife says, "You are." The madam tell her girls, "Just give those guys blow-up dolls. They're so wasted they'll never know the difference." After, when they're walking home, the first guy says, "I think mine was dead. She never moved or made a sound the whole time." The second says, "I think mine was a witch." First, "Really, why's that?" Second, "'Cause when I bit her ass she farted in my face and then flew out the window." A man stands in front of a food truck and reads the menu. Cheeseburgers, $5. Fries, $3. Hand jobs, $10. He walks up to the window and asks the beautiful blonde working behind the counter, "Are you the one that gives the hand jobs?" "Yes, I am," she replies seductively. "Well, wash your hands, I want a cheeseburger." There is a terrible car accident just outside of a small village. The driver's body is mangled from the waist up, and the village doctor can't figure out who it is. He calls in the 3 old gossip ladies from the village to see if they can figure out who it is. They look and look. Finally, the first one unzips the pants. "Well, it's not my husband." The second one says, "You're right, it's not your husband." The third one says, "He's not even from this village." 4 nuns arrive at the pearly gates of heaven. Saint Peter is there to meet them with a bowl of holy water. Saint Peter goes up to the first nun and says, "Have you ever touched a penis?" The first nun responds, "Yes, I have. I have touched a penis with the tip of my finger." Saint Peter holds out the bowl and says, "Dip your finger in this holy water and be free to enter the kingdom of heaven." The first nun gladly follows the instruction and proceeds to enter heaven. Saint Peter goes to the second nun and again asks, "Have you ever touched a penis?" The second nun replies hesitantly, "Yes. I have touched a penis with my whole hand." Saint Peter smiles and says, "Do not despair, simply dip your whole hand into the holy water and enter the kingdom of heaven." The second nun quickly does as she is told and gladly steps forth into heaven. At this point, the fourth nun cuts in front of the third nun and says, "Listen, I better go next because I'm not gurgling that crap," after she sticks her ass in it. A man walks into a bar with an alligator. He calls for everyone's attention, orders a beer, and proceeds to put his balls in the gator's open mouth. The gator closes its mouth. The man drinks the beer and then takes the bottle and whacks the gator on the head with it real hard. The gator opens its mouth, and the man shows off his unharmed balls. He looks around the bar and says, "I'll give anyone here a $100 to try this." There is dead silence in the bar, and then a hand goes up in the back, and a blonde girl comes forward and says, "I'll give it a shot, just don't hit me so hard with the bottle." 3 guys die and Saint Peter stops them at the Golden Gates. He tells them, "Depending how faithful you were to your wife, depends what kind of car you drive across the Golden Bridge to heaven." First guy says, "I was married 10 years and only cheated 3 times." Saint Peter says, "That's okay, I suppose. Here, take this older model pickup truck." Second guy says, "I was married 15 years and only cheated once." Saint Peter says, "Pretty great, here, take this sports car." Third guy says, "I was married 40 years and never cheated on my wife." Saint Peter says, "Wow, that's the best I've ever heard. Here, take this golden edition Rolls Royce." The 3 guys start across the bridge and the Rolls takes off and leaves them. About halfway across, the other two guys find the rolls pulled over with his head on the steering wheel. They stop and walk over. First guy says, "Come on man, being dead isn't so bad." Second guy says, "Yeah, look what you're driving, and look what we're driving." Third guy says, "No guys, you don't get it, I just saw my wife go by on a skateboard." A priest is out fishing on a lake with a member of his church. Just when they were fixing to call it a day and reeling in the lines, the priest gets a bite. He finally gets the fish on the boat, and his friend says, "Wow. What a beautiful son of a bitch." The priest looks at the man shocked. The man explains, "No father. That's what the fish is called." So the priest laughs. Back at the church, the priest slams the fish on the kitchen counter next to a nun and proclaims, "Look at that son of a bitch." The nun is visibly shocked. So the priest explains that it's the fish's name. So the nun giggles. They both stood there and realized that the fish is much too big for the both of them to eat. So, they decide to call the Pope over for dinner. The Pope comes over. The fish was amazing. The priest leans back in his chair and says, "That son of a bitch was good." The nun also leaned back and proclaimed, "Yes. That son of a bitch was really good." The Pope looks at both of them relaxing a little more in his chair and says, "Hey, you duckers are all right." The priest and a rabbi are friends. One day they are having lunch and the priest says to the rabbi, "You know, we've been friends for a while. I've always wondered your religion forbids you eating pork. Have you ever eaten pork?" The rabbi says, "Well, yes, once. When I was a teenager I was at a friend's house and I tried a little bit of ham. So then let me ask you, as a priest, you're forbidden from having sex. Have you ever been with a woman?" The priest says, "Well, my friend, I'll confess to you. When I was a teenager, before I committed to the priesthood, I once had sex with a woman." The rabbi nods his head, leans in, and says, "Better than ham, isn't it?" A businessman is getting ready to go on a long business trip. He knows his wife is always horny, so he decides to get her something to keep her occupied while he was gone, because he didn't much like the idea of her screwing someone else. So he went to a store that sold sex toys and started looking around. He thought about a life-sized sex doll, but that was too close to another man for him. He was browsing through the dildos, looking for something special to please his wife, and started talking to the old man behind the counter. He explained his situation to the old man. "Well, I don't really know of anything that will do the trick. We have vibrating dildos, special attachments, and so on, but I don't know of anything that will keep her occupied for weeks, except A," said the old man, and then he stopped. "Except what?" asked the businessman. Nothing, said the old man. "Come on, tell me. I need something," protested the businessman. "Well, sir, I don't usually mention this, but there is the voodoo dildo," the old man said. "The voodoo dildo?" the businessman asked. The old man reached under the counter and pulled out an old wooden box carved with strange symbols. He opened it, and there lay a very ordinary-looking dildo. The businessman laughed and said, "Big ducking deal. It looks like every other dildo in this shop." The old man said, "But you haven't seen what it'll do yet." He pointed to a door and said, "Voodoo dildo, the door." The voodoo dildo rose out of its box, darted over to the door, and started screwing the keyhole. The whole door shook with the vibrations, and a crack developed down the middle. Before the door could split, the old man said, "Voodoo dildo, box." The voodoo dildo stopped, floated back to the box and lay there, motionless. The businessman said, "I'll take it." The guy took it home to his wife, told her it was a special dildo, and that to use it, all she had to do was say, "Voodoo dildo, my pussy." He left for his trip satisfied things would be fine while he was gone. After he'd been gone a few days, the wife was unbearably horny. She thought of several people who would willingly satisfy her, but then she remembered the voodoo dildo. She lay down, placed the box between her legs, and said, "Voodoo dildo, my pussy." The voodoo dildo shot to her crotch and started pumping. It was great, like nothing she'd ever experienced before. After 3 orgasms, she decided she'd had enough and tried to pull it out, but it was stuck in her, still thrusting. She tried and tried to get it out, but nothing worked. Her husband had forgot to tell her how to shut it off. So she decided to go to the hospital to see if they could help. She put her clothes on, got in the car and started to drive to the hospital, quivering with every thrust of the dildo. On the way, another orgasm nearly made her swerve off the road and she was pulled over by a policeman. He asked for her license and then asked how much she'd had to drink. Gasping and twitching, she explained that she hadn't been drinking, but that a voodoo dildo was stuck in her pussy and wouldn't stop screwing her. The officer looked at her for a second and then said, "Yeah, right. Voodoo dildo, my ass." Thanks for watching. What did you think of the story time? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more story times.